Chapter 2674, Demonic Cave? Chapter 2674, Demonic Cave. Yi Futian and the others were right under the demonic shadow, and they dared not breathe too hard. A devil emperor. This demonic shadow must be that of a devil emperor. However, there was no head, as it had been sheared off. However, even without his head, he still seemed to have his own will and had smashed the Karura with a single blow. It was as if he still recognized who his mortal enemy was after all those years. A horrific coercion shrouded this space, and a dead silence pervaded. Just one of the hands from this demonic shadow was enough to wipe out all of them easily. At this time, the demonic shadow moved, turning slowly to face them. Even without a head, they still felt like he was staring at them. Immediately, everyone felt suffocated. It was as if their breathing was about to stop, and they dared not move an inch. Traces of horrific demonic might lingered, passing over them. Yi Futian's heart was beating wildly. He hoped they wouldn't be so unlucky. At this moment, the demonic shadow turned around and proceeded to leave this place. Yi Futian and the others still did not make a move. Not until the demonic shadow had gone far enough away from them did they let out a sigh of relief. "It's an imperial corpse, one that can move," Lord Qin whispered. None of them would have survived. The demonic shadow decided to move against them. "We have to be more careful. The center of the house Karura will probably be more dangerous," Yi Futian reminded everyone as they nodded their heads. They could fight against the cultivators from the outside world, but facing this kind of ancient demon god, they wouldn't even know how they died. He thought of the great hand that reached out from the abyss before and wondered if a great emperor was also lying beneath them. Yi Futian regarded this city of ruin with awe and respect. He avoided us and didn't engage us, but he unleashed a fatal strike against that Karura. Chen Yi continued, "Is this a conscious act or just mere instinct?" Everyone else was in deep thoughts about this question as well. The great emperor had his own independent sensibility. Or was his slaying of his mortal enemy, the Karura, a reflex? Even if there is some kind of consciousness, it must be vague and chaotic. It is possible that it is the same as those demonic beasts we have encountered in this world. They have probably forgotten who they were and only remember that their mortal enemy is the Karura. Yi Futian continued, "Otherwise, if there is still a discernible consciousness, then with the means available to the great emperors, he would have been able to return in his completed form rather than just a headless corpse." Everyone nodded, agreeing with Yi Futian's assessment. Great emperors were immortal existences. Their lifespans were as eternal as heaven and earth. Even if his head was chopped off, he could still respawn and regenerate, but that devil emperor did not have a head. It was just a headless corpse. If it's just instinct, then his instinct is to kill the Karura. Since he didn't try to engage us before, he shouldn't do that now either, Lord Qin analyzed. Where did he go now? Yi Futian looked at Lord Qin and knew what he meant by that. He wanted to follow and see what was going on. "Everyone follow me and watch yourselves," said Yi Futian. He then led the people forward. When they first got here, they were way more cautious now than before. What had happened just now had a significant impact on them. Walking in this ancient and desolate royal city of the House Karura, they had seen other cultivators on their way, whose cultivation was very strong indeed. Those who could stay alive and get here were either cultivators in the tribulation plane, or they had come along with clans or sections. "The atmosphere ahead is even more terrifying," Yi Futian whispered. Everyone nodded because they had felt it too. The ground ahead was of the color of blood. It looked as if it had been soaked in fresh blood. An oppressive and terrifying aura appeared in this area, which was also where the headless demonic corpse had returned. There were many corpses and skeletons on the ground, including those of cultivators and giant monsters. There were even many bones from the Karura, which were gigantic. This is the main battleground. Everyone secretly marveled when they saw what was before them. There was a wild atmosphere everywhere, and this wild atmosphere invaded in their direction, turning into rays of bloody light, wanting to penetrate their will. "Watch out," Yi Futian said to them. "Those demonic things before may have been corrupted by the chaotic will hear. Don't be affected by it." He deliberately allowed some wisps of this aura to invade his own will. Sure enough, The invading will was full of violence and bloodthirsty intentions, wanting to influence him, even occupying his consciousness. Those whose cultivation was weaker and weak-willed would be easily affected if they were not careful. Moreover, this invading will was invisible. There was no way to evade it except to guard their spirits with tremendous vigilance. The light of Buddha was shining, as sounds of Buddha lingered between heaven and earth, penetrating everyone's ears. The light of Buddha dazzled upon Hua Qingqing, yielding an extremely sacredness. Like a Buddha lamp illuminating this area, it was protecting everyone within its bounds. Those invading will that entered this domain were eaten up slowly until the Buddha light until it completely dissipated and disappeared. The techniques of Buddhism were meant to restrain the power of demons and evil spirits. In this space, the techniques of Buddhism would be far more effective. What is this place? Yi Futian looked in one direction and saw that it was completely corrupted by the aura of the demonic path. The earth there was a color of blood, and it was a domain of dead silence. In that domain, there were many horrific auras. It seemed as if the ghosts of demonic cultivators were drifting about. A terrifying suffocation permeated the entire domain. Many cultivators who arrived took a detour and did not dare to approach. He is inside. Lord Shin saw a figure inside, and it was the headless devil emperor. He was in there, and it seemed as if he was bound to this demonic domain. But just now, he was able to get out. There are treasures inside. Yi Futian stared yonder and commented. His perception was powerful, so he could detect that there were imperial-level treasures inside. That entire domain may be the demonic domain formed by the demise of some great emperor. It's too dangerous. Lord Shin said, "Forget it, we don't need this opportunity that badly." Yi Futian glanced into the distance. It was true that he didn't need it, but someone else needed it. This was where the demonic clan battled the Karura, and a lot of top figures from the demonic world probably arrived, but they were not in the same area as them. The demonic clan would probably reap many gains. However, his older senior brother's cultivation had remained at a bottleneck. Yi Futian's adoptive father had taught his older senior brother the demonic blade and asked him to cultivate demonic techniques. This cultivation alone took many years. It was not until later that he realized that his older senior brother had suffered a lot to develop this demonic method. Indeed, he had paid a heavy price for it. But his older senior brother later encountered a bottleneck in his cultivation. Even with the aid of the elixirs, he was unable to break the shackles. Now, Gu Donglu, their third senior brother, had progressed considerably in his cultivation. The older senior brother couldn't be lagging too far behind. He needed to catch up. Therefore, when Yi Futian saw the territory of this devil emperor, he thought of helping his older senior brother obtain this opportunity. This headless devil emperor should not be malicious. Otherwise, we would not have survived. I will go in and take a look, and you guys wait for me here, Yi Futian said to everyone. It looked like that he wanted to take the risk again. Hua Jiyu touched his hand and said, "I'll go with you." Yi Futian shook his head. "Don't worry. If there is danger, I will use Buddha's celerity to get away immediately." He had weighed the pros and cons. For himself, he thought he should be relatively safe. The only variable would be the headless imperial corpse. But even if that headless imperial corpse had bad intentions, he could rely on Buddha's celerity, and it would be possible for him to escape. After all, it was not a real great emperor, just a divine body. Hua Jiyu could only nod in agreement. "I'm going in first," Yi Futian said before entering into that domain. In an instant, traces of frightening demonic will surrounded him. It was as if he had completely immersed himself inside the domain world of the demonic gods, which was separated from the outside world. This was the demonic cave, the real world of demons. In the surrounding area, demonic shadows manifested, their eyes fixed on Yi Futian, with the cold spirits of bloodthirst. It seemed that these demonic shadows were not solid forms but were transformed by will alone. The light of Buddha bloomed upon Yi Futian with radiant brilliance. Suddenly, under the illumination from the light of Buddha, many demonic shadows withdrew. It was as if they were afraid of the power of Buddhism. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2675. A Strange Sight. Chapter 2675. A Strange Sight. Someone was here. Futian looked at the few dead bodies strewn on the ground. They were bloody and indiscernible. It was hard to tell what was what. Other cultivators had come before and perished here. This made Futian even more vigilant. He saw terrifying demonic shadows converging, harboring horrific demonic will. Some demonic shadows rushed at the light of Buddha and swooped down on Futian. Is this the chaotic will created by the fallen demons? Futian wondered. As derived from Buddhism, his strength was so powerful that even the cultivators in the second tribulation plane could not get close to him. All of these cultivators would be purified by the light of Buddha, and that was the reason why all the demonic shadows that came for him retreated. Any demonic will that was able to pounce on him suggested that the will of the Devil Emperor had already tainted it. Futian clasped his hands together, releasing the light of Buddha to the extreme, purifying all the power of evil spirits in this world. Faintly, a will of the great emperor was shining upon him as he allowed those evil phantoms to come at him without backing away but continued pushing forward. The demonic phantoms looked menacing as they opened their mouth and clawing at his body. Even the terrifying demonic will tried to invade Futian's consciousness but was blocked outside. Futian watched numerous demons moving forward in this demonic cave, and the sight was incredibly creepy. However, he didn't show the slightest sign of fear. Under the light of Buddha, the holy soil was right beneath his feet. He saw many demonic soldiers on the ground, still in possession of their residual wills as a terrifying, bloody demonic light was released. Back then, many demonic cultivators were buried here. Then Futian saw the treasure he was talking about. He could perceive it while he was outside, but he couldn't see it. It was not until he entered did he know what that treasure was. A demonic blade was sticking out of the ground, surrounded by a frightening, bloody demonic light. Even more alarming was that the demonic blade was impaled on a skull. It was a giant skull that belonged to a Karura, whose body was even more massive behind the head. It was almost like a small mountain. However, its body was in a pile of bits and pieces. Still, a terrible aura pervaded. But there was another equally shocking sight. Under the gigantic claws of the Karura, there was another skull that belonged to a demon. It was simply impossible to imagine how bloody and horrific the battle was. The two combatants had destroyed each other by ripping off their heads, and they both died in this place. Even now, a terrible bloody demonic light circled the demonic blade, and the surrounding space was stained with blood, forming a great domain of its own. Imperial arms. Futian secretly marveled, and his heart palpitated. He saw that not far away from the demonic blade was a figure standing there quietly. It was the headless Devil Emperor. At this moment, Futian realized that the skull may have belonged to the headless Devil Emperor. Once upon a time, he was locked in combat with a Karura, and both battled to the death. They had each chopped off the other's head and perished here. After their deaths, the demonic way suppressed and restricted the Karura's will, but the Devil Emperor's own will did not completely disperse. It possibly became the source of that chaotic will. Therefore, his headless corpse was able to wander outside, even appear in the outside world, and kill any Karura around. Even though he had perished for countless years, he still remembered who his mortal enemy was and used the same method to chop off the Karura's head. Futian was a little hesitant. That demonic blade was some demonic imperial arms. But could he take it? Many cultivators died here, and he was not the first to come. Even if he could stop the corrosion of the demonic will, would the headless Devil Emperor try to kill him? After all, that demonic blade was impaled on the head of a Karura. Futian continued to move forward and saw something extremely shocking ahead. In reality, he was still a distance away from it. He was walking very slowly and moving forward tentatively, approaching the area where the demonic blade was. He discovered that there were several corpses at the place next to the demonic blade, where the demonic will was ravaging. It was as if they died while trying to reach the demonic blade. Were they killed by the demonic blade or by the headless Devil Emperor? Futian glanced at the headless devil emperor and saw that he did not make any move, as if completely ignoring his existence. Even so, just by standing there, he exuded a strong threat so that Futian dared not move recklessly. More importantly, the demonic will here was getting more terrifying. He was somewhat hesitant. He was not the first person to come here, but those who wanted to take the demonic blade forcibly had died. So far, no one was able to take it away. So, could he take the demonic blade with him? It was an imperial arms comparable to the sky tremoring. If he could take it, no doubt, the strength of the Ziwei Imperial Palace would be significantly enhanced. Futian hesitated for another moment before determination took hold in his eyes. Tentatively, he walked a few steps further and saw the headless devil emperor still did not move. He guessed that those bodies might not have been killed by the headless devil emperor, after all. They might have encountered some fatal crisis while trying to take the demonic blade and were subsequently obliterated. When he walked next to the demonic blade, Futian was under terrifying pressure. It seemed as if the demonic will around him was about to swallow him up. However, he could not go back now since he had already made it this far. However, Futian was mentally prepared to escape. If and when real danger arose, he would choose his own safety first. Before he attempted the demonic blade, Futian looked at the headless devil emperor again and saw that there was still no movement from him. Finally, he put his hand on the demonic blade, trying to pull it out. However, at this instant, the bloody demonic light flowed along his arm and crawled into his body. Boom! An incomparable force that seemed to be able to swallow everything swallowed his entire person. Or, in other words, swallowed his will. He stood there holding the demonic blade but felt he had entered the world of the demonic blade. In this other world, he saw a terrifying battlefield, surrounded by countless great monsters in the sky. The great army of the House Karura obscured the sky and the sun as demonic cultivators came to attack. The battle had gone on for days, as the blood spilled had stained this world red. Buzz. At this time, a horrific Karura rushed towards his will in a threatening manner that was beyond description. At this moment, the head of the Karura that had been chopped off by the demonic blade lit up with a ray of light. This is bad. Futian was alarmed. He wanted to escape, but when he tried to move his mind, he found that his body was frozen in place. It was as if he was nailed to the ground. His entire will was shut off by the demonic blade, and his Buddha's celerity was useless. This demonic blade seemed to seal off a corner of the world, while it also sealed off the will of the Karura demon monarch. Countless demonic wills moved toward Futian's will, wanting to swallow his will and merge with him. However, Futian's will seemed to morph into a phantom of the Buddha, resisting the invasion of the demonic will. Boom! The will of the Karura demon monarch swooped down, and Futian felt as if his head was about to explode and that his will was on the verge of being smashed to pieces. This was obviously something that Futian did not expect. In addition to the demonic will, there was also the will of the Karura, which still existed in the world after all these years. Although it had long been corroded, it remained in its most violent and bloodthirsty form. Vaguely, Futian realized that this was probably how those demonic corpses on the outside were created. They had been corrupted by this incredibly chaotic will. He perceived an unbridled and bloodthirsty Karura will, contemptuous, domineering, and invincible. It was the will of the demon monarch while he was alive. There was not much for Futian to consider. All he could do now was fight. He released the will of the demon peacock emperor to try to counter the will of the Karura. However, after repeated attacks, he could no longer hold the will at bay. The will of the Karura was far too wild to be tamed. Under these repeated blasts, Futian felt as if his will was about to collapse and shatter. If so, he would, no doubt, perish here like the rest. At this moment, Futian moved his thoughts slightly to activate his spiritual soul. Wisps of the great path flowed into the demonic blade, attempting to use the demonic will inside the demonic blade to erase the Karura. When this will poured madly into the demonic blade lit up with an extremely brilliant demonic light, illuminating this corner of the sky. A horrible rumbling sound came out as blood-red lightning appeared all around it. Inside the demonic blade, The bloodthirsty will of the Karura withdrew suddenly after having sensed this aura. The wild and unbridled will of the Karura demon monarch seemed to draw back in fear, even in awe, and did not dare to contend with it. What's going on? Yi Futian felt a little frightened when he sensed this. The attack just now almost wiped him out. Yet, at this moment, that insane attack suddenly pulled back, and even the demonic will in the demonic blade had quieted. At this time, there was no other will that continued to attack him. This strange turn of events stunned Yi Futian. What was happening? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2676. Integration and Obliteration. Chapter 2676. Integration and Obliteration. The aura of the Great Path in Yi Futian crazily poured into the demonic blade while his will did the same as well. Gradually, many demonic wills retreated. As his power continued to penetrate that forbidden, elusive space, he saw many demons pull back or be knocked away until a clear, sinister phantom revealed itself there. In another direction, another figure also appeared. The chaotic will seemed to have disappeared, replaced by two sober conscious wills. However, they were clearly weaker. This, Yi Futian was shocked to his core. Were these the will of the Devil Emperor and the will of the Karura Demon Monarch? Did their remaining traces of will vanish because of his intervention? Who are you? Two voices sounded in Yi Futian's head at the same time. I am Yi Futian, a latecomer, Yi Futian replied. The phantom of the Devil Emperor stared at Yi Futian and asked, "What year is this?" More than 10,000 years according to the divine prefecture calendar. Elder is a cultivator from the primordial age of the gods. Yi Futian responded, however, we have no way to verify just how long it has been since your time. The age of the gods. The other muttered to himself, what happened to that era? All the gods have fallen, and the heavenly path collapsed, Yi Futian responded. They had already fallen at that time, so they might have had no idea what happened later. In today's world, 6 great emperors ruled the 6 great realms, Yi Futian continued. The demon phantom was silent. So, there were only 6 great emperors in existence now. The world they were in was known as the Age of the Gods. However, the gods perished, and the heavenly path collapsed. They seemed to have won, for the heavenly path did collapse. But what was the outcome? What is the world like after the collapse of the heavenly path? Is the demon clan still in existence? The Devil Emperor asked. After the heavenly path collapsed, the original realm expanded. The world experienced an apocalyptic catastrophe which gave rise to a new world. However, these are just what we know from the ancient annals and legends. There is no way for us to verify their veracity today. All we know is that the world has changed, and the heavenly path was no more. The path of cultivation is no longer perfect, and great emperors are rare existences. Yi Futian added, as for the demon clan, the devil world remains today, guarding the devil abyss. The heavenly path collapsed, but the prison for the demon clan is still there. He sighed and could find no words. Why did they do everything they did back then? Who was right and who was wrong? The heavenly path collapsed, but the world was also destroyed. Were they the redeemers or the sinners? The Devil Emperor looked at Yi Futian. He seemed to be somewhat curious about him. His regained consciousness seemed to be a little greater than the demon monarch's. You have the aura of the demon clan upon you, the other said to Yi Futian. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website My Novelful. Thanks. I have been to the devil world, and my body has experienced the tribulations of the devil abyss, Yi Futian replied. So, you have a close relationship with the devil world? The Devil Emperor asked. The heir to the devil world is my best friend, and we grew up together, Yi Futian responded. Although he didn't know what he did to sober up their wills, he did know that he should be in the good graces of someone like the Devil Emperor. Where is he now? The other queried. He is in the outside world, probably looking for opportunities elsewhere. If you need me to, I can go and find him for you, Yi Futian said. There is no time, the other man responded. Years ago, I fell, and the remaining will should have dissipated then. But, because of the existence of this blade, I was able to retain a trace of my will. After all these years, this trace of will had long been merged with the will of the demonic blade and became chaotic and confused. Now that you have awakened me, it should be the end of my time here. My senior brother cultivates the demonic path, Yi Futian said. Tell him to come, the other said to Yi Futian. Yi Futian nodded, then notified the little condor. The little condor didn't take long to bring his senior brother, the sword saint, here. The little condor and Yi Futian shared the same mind, so he was aware of the intention of this request. He and the sword saint walked in front of the demonic blade and then allowed their wills to pour into it. Revered elders. After the sword saint arrived, he was immediately shocked as well. In here, besides Yi Futian, there were 2 other wills from the demon monarchs, and they had both woken up. Boom! A horrific demonic will invaded the will of the sword saint, and his entire person was instantly under a frightful attack. His will was released to the extreme, but those demonic wills flooded in, wanting to consume him completely. He had experienced this exact feeling once before. When the mysterious cultivator who guarded Yi Futian passed the demonic blade to him, it was this same exact feeling. It's a pity that it is a little too weak, but the will itself is strong enough, a voice remarked. Then a terrifying demonic will merged into the will of the sword saint. At this moment, the sword saint was under terrible coercion, and his body trembled violently. Above the demonic blade, wisps of demonic light poured into his body, so that an astonishing demonic will float upon him. The will of the elder is quite compatible with my demonic beast. How about helping him as well? Yi Futian looked at the Karura demon monarch's will and proposed. Sure. The other looked at Yi Futian and nodded readily. Then, his will proceeded to merge with the will of the little condor. Yi Futian perceived all these quietly, feeling that everything was going a little too smoothly. He was surprised that this demon monarch was so cooperative. But just as the thought flashed across his mind, a miserable cry came out. Yi Futian could clearly feel that the little condor's will was being invaded and attacked. This was not to merge but to swallow and replace. Ungrateful beast! Yi Futian cursed under his breath. This demon monarch's will was clearly in awe of him just moments ago, but suddenly he attacked the little condor. Its temperament was dangerously unpredictable. Yi Futian's will instantly swooped out. He and the little condor were connected through their minds and shared one conjoined will. His will now seemed to have turned into the divine tree, covering the phantom of the opponent's will. This force of will seemed capable of suppressing the other. Boom! The great paths of shadow and solar erupted simultaneously. At the same time, the powerful demonic will in the demonic blade also surged forward to assist, as the sword saint had completed the integration of the wills and came to aid him. With 3 forces encircling and suppressing him, the phantom of the demon monarch appeared to be in extreme pain and became more and more elusive. You are nothing but a wisp of will that about to dissipate, but you did not appreciate the opportunity one gave you to remain in this world. You tried to betray us, you ungrateful animal. Yi Futian's voice was extremely cold as he continued to beat down the last remaining will of the other. That remaining trace of will was fighting madly, but the sword saint had already controlled the will of the demonic blade. Their opponent was sealed in here, and it was difficult for him to fight back. I submit, the other responded. Too late. Yi Futian's voice was ice-cold. It is your honor to be able to integrate as one with my mount. Since you were deceitful first and eschewed this opportunity, then prepare to be destroyed forever. This will from the demon monarch was unpredictable. If he were really to be integrated with the will of the little condor, who knows what latent dangers might be lurking? It was better just to wipe him out now. As soon as Yi Futian's voice faded, several forces rushed fiercely at the same time and obliterated the opponent. The phantom shattered and dissipated. They completely disappeared. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2677, Predators Watching? Chapter 2677. Predators watching Yi Futian and the little condor withdrew their collective will and opened their eyes as Yi Futian left the demonic blade. Behind them, other cultivators arrived, looking at the sword saint. They saw the sword saint holding the demonic blade in his hands, his eyes closed tightly. As the demonic light cleansed his body and the surrounding area, terrible demonic will rushed into the demonic blade. However, with the inheritance of the Devil Emperor's will, the sword saint's will no longer wavered. It stood steadfast as it allowed the demonic blade to consume the strength of the incoming demonic will. A terrible vortex appeared in the space as the elusive demonic shadows poured into it. At this moment, the chaotic wills seemed to merge into one, devouring everything. Buzz. Upon the demonic blade, an extremely horrific bloody demonic light shot into the sky. Its demonic might was overwhelming. It turned into a frightening light beam that pierced the sky. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Yi Futian and the others looked up. They saw that the sky above this world had changed color. The demonic might was tossing and roaring. Further away, other cultivators turned their attention to this side as well, and all of them revealed a look of great surprise. They wondered what had happened at the location of the headless demonic corpse. Previously, no one could take the demonic blade, but now they saw a change taking place at that exact location. Could it be that someone else had managed to take the demonic blade? In the distance, many cultivators rushed over when they saw the vision above the firmament. They were moving in fast. The sword saint was still immersed in that state of absorption, as he had not been able to digest everything given to him so quickly. His cultivation lacked a bit, to begin with. Even though the Devil Emperor had actively merged with him, he needed time to absorb this power. Imperial Corpse. Yi Futian glanced at the Karura's massive body, then walked over to eliminate some of its chaotic will. He put the Imperial Corpse away. Although it might not be of any use, for the time being, there may be a use for it somewhere down the road. The Imperial Corpse, such as the one left by the Karura demon monarch, was extremely terrifying in the flesh. It was the body of a great emperor, so the entire body was full of treasures. However, it was not yet possible for them to use it at the moment. Even if they had a mind to refine it into some divine arms, they currently could not do that, so everything would have to wait until later. He looked at the corpse of the Devil Emperor again. At this moment, the demonic corpse was standing there quietly, not showing any sign of life. Yi Futian walked towards him and said, "Revered elder, if I ever get a chance, I will send you back to the devil world to be laid to rest properly." With that said, he put away this demonic corpse as well. At the last minute, the will of the Devil Emperor chose to actively assist him, for which Yi Futian was immensely grateful. More importantly, he had already passed on his will to his elder senior brother, so Yi Futian could not leave him out here, unburied. On the contrary, the Karura demon monarch had been in awe of his aura yet suddenly attacked him. It had proven that he was an unpredictable creature, and Yi Futian felt no allegiance to such a miserable thing. What a waste, a missed opportunity from a great emperor, Little Condor said with much rumination. He had been following Yi Futian in cultivation for a long time and possessed the same comprehension as Yi Futian in cultivation. However, to survive the tribulation was another matter entirely. He had been stuck at the same place for what seemed to be forever, limited by his own natural given talent. After all, he was nothing more than an ordinary demonic beast, to begin with, and it was already something of a miracle for him to get to this level of cultivation. Many of the other minor demons from the past had to bow down before him now when they saw him. He was so close to this opportunity of the great emperor, yet it was derailed by that miserable creature who not only did not take advantage of it but wanted to swallow him up instead. The little condor couldn't help but feel particularly upset by this turn of events. No, that's not right. Not taking this opportunity with me was the loss of that stupid creature. Realizing that his logic hurt him, the little condor determined that ultimately it was not a pity for him. It was the Karura demon monarch himself who didn't know what was good for him and had thus missed such a great opportunity. Don't worry. The world is changing now, and various kinds of God's relics have been revealed. I'm certain there will be many other opportunities in the future, Yi Futian responded. I'm not in a hurry. Little Condor swaggered back and didn't appear to care at all. The other cultivators behind them were very hopeful when they heard this. The world had been going through some drastic changes, and the relics of the gods had made their appearance. They wondered if they would have opportunities of their own. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyNovelful. Thanks. First, it was Yi Wuchen, Gu Donglu, then Swordmaster of Lihan Yaya, and now it was Sword Saint's turn. Many people had already gotten their own opportunities, so the rest were looking forward to their turns. But just at this moment, everyone felt other cultivators approaching. Many of them frowned as they expanded their divine consciousnesses. After the Sword Saint inherited the Devil Emperor's will, the danger in this demonic cave was lifted, clearly visible to other cultivators in the area. Many divine consciousnesses were sweeping over this area, even probing the location of the Sword Saint. Yonder, there was the existence of imperial arms. Yi Futian frowned. The divine light of the Great Path shrouded over the area where the Sword Saint was, preventing him from being disturbed by the others. The cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace also stepped forward to guard his flanks, to prevent anyone from affecting the Sword Saint while inheriting the demonic blade. And imperial arms were of great significance to Ziwei Imperial Palace and may directly change the combat capability of Ziwei Imperial Palace. Ziwei Imperial Palace is currently occupying this space for cultivation. I'm afraid you all would need to move to some other locations, Yi Futian announced loudly, letting everyone know who they were. He was doing this as a warning. Hopefully, some of them would leave on their own and avoid further confrontation. However, the name of Ziwei Imperial Palace did not always have its intended effect. At least, that was not the case here. Anyone who made it this far was not a simple ordinary character. All of them were cultivators from top principalities. At this time, Yi Futian saw cultivators from the ancient god clan of the Vajra region and superpowers from the other worlds. I didn't expect that you would have a demon cultivator in your group. It seems that you have indeed colluded with the devil world and sank into the demonic path, the Vajra region lord proclaimed sanctimoniously. He was surrounded by divine light, and his appearance was solemn and dignified. That radiant golden divine light shrouded the boundless space and cast a golden hue over this entire area. What's wrong with demonic cultivators? A voice challenged immediately. There was a demon standing there with a terrific aura. Their demonic might was astounding to anyone near him. However, Yi Futian did not recall having seen this man before. He hadn't seen the man at the Devil Imperial Palace nor on the battlefield at the Northern Cliff region. It was possible that he was not a cultivator from the Devil Imperial Palace but a giant in the Devil world. There were some extraordinary figures from each realm, but not all of them had joined the imperial palaces in each realm. For example, the ancient god clans in the Divine Prefecture had superior cultivators such as the Supreme Sword Lord on their roster. Still, they weren't all necessarily under the command of Donghuang Imperial Palace. Beigong Old Demon. When the Vajra region lord looked at the person who spoke, he realized he recognized the man. Beigong Old Demon was an extremely well-known character in the devil world. During the most chaotic years, countless people had perished because of him. In the devil world, Beigong Old Demon was one of the few people who stood at the top, someone who was on the demigod list. In the days after the settlement of the world, it was divided into 7 realms, which several great emperors ruled. After the great emperors, there were those known as Benshin, entities who were on the edge of being a great emperor. Someone had once calculated the number of this kind of supreme existence and found that there were only a very few in each world. These individuals were then included on the demigod list by some people, meaning that they were peak existences with power just below that of the great emperors. Those at this level were rarely seen in the cultivation world. One reason was that they were extremely few in number, and there were only a few in each world. Secondly, all of them were busy with their cultivation, so the outside world did not have any chance to see them. More importantly, many on the demigod list were supreme cultivators in different imperial palaces. Their statuses were lofty and revered. Normally, they were not in the habit of being out and about. Beigong Old Demon was a supreme cultivator on the demigod list. At the moment, the imperial arms, the sky tremoring, had already appeared in Yi Futian's hand. Although this man was a demonic cultivator, it was not a guarantee that he would go easy on Yi Futian. After all, aside from his relationship with Yu Xing, Yi Futian did not have much to do with the devil world. Furthermore, this Beigong old demon may have nothing to do with the devil imperial palace. With an imperial arms in front of him, how could he resist the temptation? In addition to the Vajra region lord and Beigong old demon, there were other incredibly powerful existences in other directions. Among them, there was a middle-aged man standing somewhere quietly, exuding an aura that was extremely terrifying to make sure that Yi Futian was aware of the threat. He had been standing there quietly without speaking, merely staring at the demonic blade in front of him. Naturally, everyone present knew of Yi Futian's name and reputation, so there was no grabbing and fighting just yet. You must have been here before already. Since you didn't get it, then it means you are not destined to have it. Now that the demonic blade has chosen us, it belongs to Ziwei Imperial Palace, Yi Futian said boldly as he looked at everyone present. If any of you want to forcibly take it from us, you will leave us no choice but to defend ourselves. Think carefully before you make a move. Whether you succeed or not, once you make a move against us, you'll be our mortal enemy, and you must always watch your back in the future. He did not conceal the threat in his words. With the imperial arms in hand, his combat effectiveness was also at its peak. Those who wanted to attack him before need only to refer back to the destruction of Tianyan City, which plenty of people had witnessed. At the time, the city lord's office of Tianyan City was clearly not an entity that Yi Futian could hope to compete. Yet it was still destroyed by him in the end. If they were to offend Yi Futian now, there would be considerable risk in doing so. After all, he had already proven the extent of his strength. Killing you would mean everything would be solved, the Vajra region lord said loudly. There was a faint trace of imperial might that exuded from him with an incredible dominance. The Vajra region appeared before them, accompanied by golden divine light, which directly sealed off this vast space. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2678, West Imperial Palace Lord. Chapter 2678, West Imperial Palace Lord Yi Futian stared at the other party. He naturally sensed the presence of the will of the great emperor. From the looks of it, the 6 ancient god clans had sent out all their trump cards this time. The wills of the great emperors passed down within the ancient god clans had all followed them to this ancient continent to obtain fateful encounters. You still have to kill me first, replied Yi Futian. Terrifying tremoring pulses emanated from sky tremor and rained down on the other party. Clang. There was a loud sound of metal colliding. The body of the Vajra region lord turned golden. It was the divine body of the Vajra indestructible form. This body seemed to be forged of pure gold and was unshakable. At the same time, Yi Futian sensed a mighty divine force circulating within the body of the Vajra region lord. This was the unique technique cultivated by the cultivators of the Vajra region, the divine force of the Vajra region. What surprised Yi Futian even more was that the level of the divine force of the Vajra region cultivated by the other party had already surpassed that of the Vajra divine child. It already had the aura of the ancient emperor of the Vajra region. Had the will of the great emperor of the Vajra region become the divine force that merged with the Vajra region lord? Was the former trying to merge with the latter? Yi Futian thought to himself. If that were the case, the ability of the Vajra region lord would be very frightening. The divine force of the Vajra region was a powerful and domineering attack, to begin with. If the will of the great emperor transformed into a divine force, it would indeed become a godly power. It was hard to imagine how mighty it would be. In the heavens above, a terrifying pressure enveloped the space. Everyone felt a suffocating pressure. The dominion of the Vajra region pressed down. The divine force of the Vajra region was the only force circulating within it. The Vajra region lord stood in midair. He lifted his hand and pointed a finger at Yi Futian. The divine force of the Vajra region immediately merged into the finger. An indestructible slash shot straight out. It penetrated the space directly as it charged towards Yi Futian. When this finger charged forward, a golden slash appeared in the sky. It was terrifying. Yi Futian raised Sky Tremor towards the other party and swung it out casually. It collided with the domineering finger and let out a terrifying collision sound. The finger penetrated the tremoring pulse and continued advancing towards Yi Futian. It kept charging towards Yi Futian until it was close to him before it was shattered by the power of the tremoring pulse and disappeared without a trace. It was so powerful. The crowd thought as their hearts leapt from witnessing the scene. The power of this finger was terrifying. It directly pierced the tremoring pulse that erupted from the imperial arm. It seemed to be the finger of a great emperor. With the divine force of the great emperor, the current Vajra region lord seemed to have transcended the attack power of the two tribulation plane, reaching another level. Even the two super cultivators observing the battle also revealed surprised looks. Right now, the Vajra region lord was very dangerous. His ability did not pale in comparison to the existences on the demigod list. Yi Futian also realized that the other party was powerful. He stared at the other party, standing ready. At the same time, his life spirit aura frenziedly surged into the imperial arm. The next moment, Sky Tremor was filled with path-obliterating divine might. It also overflowed with vast domineering pressure. "All of you, get behind me," ordered Yi Futian. The cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace immediately retreated behind him. This battle was perilous. Even the aftershocks of their attacks had enough power to destroy the crowd. The other cultivators of the Vajra region similarly stood behind the Vajra region lord. They did not dare to act recklessly. A divine might emanated outwards. In the heavens above, terrifying golden divine light flowed within the dominion of the Vajra region. The figure of the Vajra region lord rose into the sky. All the cultivators behind him followed suit, remaining behind him. Terrifying rumbling could be heard. He raised his hand and pointed a finger downwards. In an instant, countless slashes of the Vajra region shot out. They appeared to be flowing lights that could destroy the world. They frenziedly rained down. The instant the attack erupted, it seemed as though the heavens were about to be extinguished. Yi Futian raised Sky Tremor and swung it towards the sky. In an instant, the heavens and earth split apart, and thousands of tremoring pulses swept out. They shattered everything around. When the two attacks clashed, the demon cave shook violently. It even felt as though an earthquake had hit the entire city. The Vajra region lord seemed to have become one with the dominion of the Vajra region. It was as though an ancient god of the Vajra region had appeared. Thousands of slashes rained down and clashed with the tremoring pulses. In that instant, everyone felt that it was hard to breathe. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. "Be careful," someone said. The expression of the surrounding cultivators changed. They released their auras of the Great Path. They all hid behind the most vital members among them. Some cultivators retreated frantically. They were worried that the tremoring pulses would destroy them. But there was a loud bang. The Great Path seemed to collapse and explode. Yi Futian wielded Sky Tremor and swung it outwards again. A screen formed in front of him and the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace. At the same time, the Vajra region lord also did the same. A gigantic Vajra region divine seal formed a barrier and blocked off the destructive storm. They actually had to shield their members from their attacks. It seemed strange, but it had happened before the eyes of the crowd. The destructive storm swept out. This formless storm destroyed all the residue demonic will in the demon cave, reducing it into dust. Many cultivators drawn to this place by the imperial arm were injured by the shockwaves and coughed up fresh blood. Even those who were far away were also affected by the aftershocks of the attacks. These were merely the aftershocks. If these attacks were direct hits, they could not imagine the damage one would sustain. They might be killed instantly. After the storm passed, Yi Futian stared at the Vajra region lord. Both sides seemed to be pulling their punches. Otherwise, the blast range would be even more terrifyingly large. However, it would be harder to fight unrestrained this way, given that they would have concerns for the safety of their members. However, from this exchange, the Vajra region lord figured out that the combat ability of Yi Futian wielding an imperial arm was not weaker than his own. Even with his true godly power of the Vajra region, wanting to destroy Yi Futian was still not an easy feat now. The members of Ziwei Imperial Palace might obtain their second imperial arm. If that truly happened, it would undoubtedly be extremely disadvantageous for the members of the Vajra region. Are the two of you just going to watch? The Vajra region lord asked as he looked at Beigong old demon and the middle-aged man. These two figures were demigods. If they also attacked to snatch the demonic imperial arm, how could Yi Futian stand against them alone? Once they fought, it would undoubtedly involve everyone from Ziwei Imperial Palace. This was undoubtedly the result the Vajra region lord wanted to see. "Palace Lord Yi," called out a voice. Just then, a group of figures headed over here. The voice instantly attracted the attention of many cultivators. Yi Futian also looked at the person who had spoken. The cultivators of the West Imperial Palace had arrived, and their leader was actually Shi Qiao. Yi Futian revealed a strange look. Shi Qiao had been cultivating in Ziwei Imperial Palace most of the time. He was naturally very close to her. It had not been long since they last met. However, he felt as though Shi Qiao's temperament had changed. It was not just her temperament. Her cultivation had also changed. She had already survived her second divine tribulation of the Great Path. Her speed of cultivation was somewhat frightening. Even with his subdivine elixir, it was still too fast. Yi Futian also sensed a special aura from Shi Qiao. It was not as simple as her cultivation having changed. This time, the various ancient god clans brought their trump cards to the relics of the gods. It should also be the same for the West Imperial Palace. Could it be that the will of the West Emperor of the West Imperial Palace was in Shi Qiao's body? The Vajra region lord frowned. He naturally knew that the West Imperial Palace and Ziwei Imperial Palace were close. They seemed to be in an alliance. Now that the West Imperial Palace cultivators had appeared, it was not good news for him. Does West Imperial Palace wish to interfere? The Vajra region lord asked Shi Qiao as he looked at her. "Interfere," repeated Shi Qiao as she looked back at the Vajra region lord. West Imperial Palace has always been good friends with Palace Lord Yi. If the Vajra region wishes to make enemies of Palace Lord Yi, the stance of West Imperial Palace naturally does not need to be elaborated. "Is West Imperial Palace now ruled by a junior brat?" said the Vajra region lord with a vigorous and powerful voice. He looked at the cultivator standing behind Shi Qiao. It was the original West Imperial Palace lord. However, he had let Shi Qiao deal with the situation. The position of Palace Lord has already been passed on to Shi Qiao. Now, she is West Imperial Palace Lord, so she naturally controls the troops, said the original West Imperial Palace Lord. This caused the Vajra region lord to reveal a strange look. The position of West Imperial Palace Lord had been passed down to Shi Qiao? Even Yi Futian glanced over here with a curious look. Over transmitted thoughts, Shi Qiao said to him, "The relics of the gods appeared. Before we left, I inherited the position of Palace Lord." Yi Futian secretly nodded his head. From the looks of it, Shi Qiao had completely inherited the will of the West Emperor. Hence, she had officially accepted the position of Palace Lord. "A mere junior brat is most likely unworthy of this position," mocked the Vajra region lord with a powerful voice. Divine might of the Great Path emanated from him and pressed down on Shi Qiao. Right then, Shi Qiao extended her hand. In her hands, there appeared an extremely slender sword. Once this sword appeared, rain immediately poured down in the surroundings. A frightening divine might was emanating from the divine sword. It appeared to be the might of a great emperor. "Raindrop divine sword," exclaimed the Vajra region lord as he stared at the divine sword. This sword was not a complete imperial arm as it was not forged by a great emperor. However, it used to be the sword of the West Emperor. The sword also possessed its own soul. It might be that the will of the West Emperor was contained within it. Even though it was not a divine sword with the will of the great emperor within it, this sword could be considered a pseudo-imperial arm. Right then, The Vajra region lord naturally understood what West Imperial Palace's trump card was. From the looks of it, it was the same as their own. Their great emperor had also appeared in the world. Shi Qiao inherited the position of West Imperial Palace Lord. She came wielding Raindrop Divine Sword. If they were to begin fighting, he would not necessarily be able to gain an upper hand. Just then, a beam of menacing demonic light pierced the clouds. The crowd looked in the direction of the demonic saber. Sword Saint opened his eyes and pulled the demonic saber out. A terrifying saber will emanated outwards. He had inherited the demonic saber. Ziwei Imperial Palace's second imperial arm had appeared. When Beigong Old Demon saw the scene, he turned and left. The other cultivators also frantically turned to leave. They knew that there was no hope for them, so they did not waste any more time here. They would not take the risk and start a fight. The expression of the Vajra region lord was ugly. However, it seemed that the only choice now was to retreat. He waved his hand and immediately retreated with the cultivators of the Vajra region. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2679. In Fighting? Chapter 2679. In Fighting? After the crowd left, Yi Futian looked at Shi Qiao and said, "Thanks." "Palace Lord Yi, aren't you acting too distant?" replied Shi Qiao with a faint smile. "Congratulations, Palace Lord Qiao," Yi Futian also replied with a smile. It hadn't been long since they last parted ways. He never imagined that Shi Qiao had reached the two-tribulation plane and inherited the position of West Imperial Palace Lord. "Palace Lord Yi deserves some credit for this," said Shi Qiao. She was clearly referring to the subdivine elixir that Yi Futian had concocted. Of course, aside from that, there was also the factor of the West Imperial Palace's teachings. Yi Futian commented, "However, now that the world has undergone a huge change, Palace Lord Qiao's cultivation has metamorphosed at the right time. You can now face the current situation. The relics of the various gods have appeared in the world now. This is a brand new era for the cultivation world." Shi Qiao added, "I also feel that way. The relics of the various gods have appeared in the world now, and the cultivation world will welcome a transformation. There will most likely be more and more tribulation plane cultivators in the future. As for Renhuangs with flawless great paths, they will be found everywhere. It will no longer be only achievable by monstrous figures in top forces." Yi Futian nodded in agreement. No one knew what would happen to the cultivation world in the future. Yi Futian looked back at Sword Saint. Sword Saint's temperament seemed to change, more closely resembling a demonic cultivator's. He asked, "Elder brother, how does it feel?" "I will probably need a very long time to digest the teachings of the Devil Emperor completely," replied Sword Saint. Responded Yi Futian as he nodded his head. His third brother Gu Donglu was also beside Sword Saint. Now, his two elder brothers were advancing to the pinnacle of the cultivation world. He naturally was happy. Rumble. Just then, the ground trembled violently. In the heavens above, the clouds changed color. Everyone was slightly surprised as they looked out into the distance. At the end of Karura Imperial City, demonic light consumed the sky, and a terrifying demonic whirlpool formed. On the other side, an endless dazzling spatial divine light shone. "Such a terrifying aura," Shi Qiao said as she also looked over in that direction. She sensed the powerful will of the emperor. It was unparalleled. It should be a battle between two top figures," said Yi Futian as he nodded. He had felt such a terrifying battle aura before from Tianyan the Great possessing Wang Zhao's body. The two storms drew closer to each other in an instant. Although Yi Futian and the others were far away from the battlefield, the destructive divine light still swept over them. In the distant heavens, two gigantic figures could faintly be seen. They were like deities. One was the figure of a demon, while the other was a shining god of space. A battle seems to have erupted between the devil world and the empty divine realm, the original West Imperial Palace Lord said. Yi Futian also looked at the demon-like silhouette. He had met this person before. He was the #1 demon sage of the devil world, Yan Gi. Yen Gi wielded a scarlet halberd and battled in his demon form. It was apparent how powerful the cultivator he faced was. His opponent should be a compelling figure from the empty divine realm. They should be Yen Gi from the devil world and Dugu Wuxia, the head disciple of the evil emperor of the empty divine realm and the leader of Empty Mountain, continued the original West Imperial Palace Lord. Both of them are figures which rank close to the top of the demigod list. They have a powerful combat ability, and they both seem to be wielding imperial arms in this battle. They should be battling over a significant relic. Otherwise, the two of them would not resort to battling head-on. It most likely involves a clash between the devil world and the empty divine realm, Shi Qiao also added. This battle between the two of them had essentially escalated to a fight between the devil world and the empty divine realm. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Yi Futian looked over in their direction. The devil world and the empty divine realm were allies when they invaded the divine prefecture. They had stood on the same front. However, once they entered the tomb of the gods as expected, this alliance did not last, and a large-scale battle erupted. Yen Gi is ranked higher up on the demigod list than Dugu Wuxia. He should have the upper hand, explained the original West Imperial Palace Lord. Let's go take a look, said Yi Futian. Their group advanced very quickly. The others also followed behind them. The destructive storm still shook the ancient barren city. Terrifying auras swept out. It was as though divine light was about to annihilate the world in the heavens above. It was extremely terrifying. Many people realized that there was a significant relic over there for two super cultivators to have begun battling. When Yi Futian's group approached the battlefield, the fighting ceased. However, the two figures still stood across each other in the sky. Their auras were still terrifying and enveloped the vast space. Down below, the lineup of cultivators from the devil world and the empty divine realm was menacing. Be it the devil world or the empty divine realm, both sides had sent their strongest lineups to the tomb of the gods. This time, they were doing this for their forces and their cultivation. Yu Xing was also present. He was standing on the ground below. There stood many top-level cultivators beside Yu Xing. The devil world had indeed sent out their finest members. Dugu, this was originally the battlefield of the ancestors of the devil world. Why is the empty divine realm contending for it? Questioned Yen Gi as he pointed the scarlet halberd in his hand towards Dugu Wuxia. The latter also stared back at him. This was not just the battlefield of the ancestors of the devil world. It belonged to House Karura, one of the 8 legions. House Karura was proficient in movement techniques involving speed. Their achievements in the domain of the Great Path of Space were astonishing. Their attack and defense were both fantastic. For the cultivators of the empty divine realm, the teachings of House Karura were undoubtedly a huge temptation. Hence, when they found the relic of House Karura, they came into conflict with the devil world. Under the heavenly path are the 8 legions. Since there is a relic of the ancestors of the devil world here, it naturally belongs to the devil world. If you want fateful encounters, find the lands of the other 8 legions. There might be places suitable for you, Yu Xing also said down below. If you want to fight, then the devil world does not mind fighting with the empty divine realm. Presumptuous, said a cultivator of the empty divine realm who stared at Yu Xing. Yi Futian had seen many of these cultivators before. He had met Shi Xie, the direct disciple of the evil emperor many years ago, and evil sage Mo Qingge. They were staring at Yu Xing. This devil emperor paid a lot of attention to the next generation of cultivators and developed them in Devil Imperial Palace, giving them extraordinary status. The cultivators who followed Yu Xing here were also top-level cultivators of the devil world. The combat ability of the devil world was extremely domineering. If they truly fought, they would do so at all cost. This was the relic of the ancestors of the devil world. It indeed should be under them. The inheritance of the ancestors of the devil world belongs to you. The teachings of House Karura belong to us, said Dugu Wuxia as he stared at Yen Gi. That won't do, Yen Gi immediately rejected. House Karura was originally the sworn enemy of the devil world. Everything that belongs to them similarly belongs to the devil world now. This is not up for discussion. If you do not leave now, the other relics of the 8 legions will most likely be plundered by other forces. Continuing to delay here was detrimental for both parties. From the attitudes of Yen Gi and the members of the Devil World, Dugu Wuxia knew that the Devil World would not relent and would not hand the relic over. If his side wanted to take it, they could only do so by fighting them all. The members of the Devil World would not give them a second option. "We will remember this," said Dugu Wuxia. He then retracted his aura and ordered, "Retreat." As he said this, one by one, the silhouettes left with flashes, becoming countless beams of spatial divine light. They disappeared without a trace very quickly. It was as though nothing had happened just now. After the members of the empty divine realm retreated, this place naturally belonged to the Devil World. Yen Gi pointed his scarlet halberd to the sky. Beams of crimson demonic light immediately shot up into the heavens and enveloped the vast space, forming a terrifying demonic domain. This domain is under the control of the Devil World. Cultivators from other worlds, leave now. No one aside cultivators from the Devil World shall be allowed to step foot in here, Yen Gi declared loudly. His voice reverberated in space. Devil Imperial Palace ruled this domain. This place where House Karura was would belong to the Devil World. Only the cultivators of the Devil World could step foot in here to cultivate in the domain. Many cultivators were disappointed. If that were the case, they would not have the chance to cultivate and seek fateful encounters here. They could only go somewhere else. "A demonic imperial arm," a demonic cultivator said as he looked at Sword Saint. Sword Saint had a demonic imperial arm. This should also belong to Devil Imperial Palace. Yi Futian glanced at the demonic cultivator and ignored him. His gaze landed on Yu Sheng's figure and he greeted, "Yu Sheng." Yu Sheng came up to Yi Futian's group and said, "The ancestors of the Devil World once battled House Karura here. Many of their corpses will most likely be here." Yi Futian nodded his head. The 6 great emperors previously came to the Tomb of the Gods. Even the Devil Emperor might have come here. Various great emperor-level forces might be leading the cultivators of their imperial palaces in finding relics even though they themselves were not taking part. For the Devil World to rule over this domain is a blessing for the cultivators of the Devil World, said Yi Futian. He looked ahead at the temple of House Karur. An extremely astonishing aura emanated from up ahead. There was also a peerless divine arm that descended from the heavens and stabbed into the ground. That region was enveloped in a menacing aura and it was hard to make out what was within it. "You can cultivate here. We will seek fateful encounters elsewhere," said Yi Futian. Yen Gi had already declared that this place belonged to the cultivators of the Devil World. Although Yi Futian's relationship with Yu Sheng was special, Yu Sheng did not represent the Devil World. Yu Sheng had yet to succeed the Devil Emperor. He could not speak on behalf of the entire Devil World. Yi Futian naturally did not wish to trouble Yu Sheng, hence he took the initiative and offered to leave. "Leave the demonic saber behind," a demonic cultivator said. His cultivation was extraordinary. However, Yu Sheng swept a cold glance at him. His gaze was overbearing. Yet the other party did not evade. He said, "What's this? Are you helping an outsider?" Yi Futian frowned. From the looks of it, Yu Sheng's position in the Devil Imperial Palace had rubbed quite a number of people the wrong way. His cultivation had yet to reach the point where he was only second to the Devil Emperor, so he could not suppress everyone. Some extraordinary people had yet to accept him. "Silence," chided Yu Sheng. His tone was cold and domineering. He then looked at Yi Futian and said, "You can stay and see whether House Karura has any suitable relics for yourselves." It was not appropriate for Yi Futian's group to take the items of the ancestors of the Devil World. However, if there were suitable relics among the items of House Karura, Yu Sheng would allow them to take them. "What is the meaning of this?" the demonic cultivator from before said indifferently. Devil Imperial Palace was ready to fight with the empty divine realm to take everything here. Now, you are just going to hand it over to someone else? When Yu Sheng heard the other party's words, he turned around and a vast demonic might swept out. After coming out of seclusion, he had yet to battle anyone. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2680, Divine Ruler. Chapter 2680, Divine Ruler. Bang. Yusheng stepped forward. His demonic might filled the skies and was extremely terrifying. He stared at the demonic cultivator who was speaking. He said, "Are you telling me how to do things?" The demonic cultivator was also not an ordinary figure. He was one of the direct disciples of the Devil Emperor and had powerful cultivation. However, when he sensed the terrifying demonic might Yusheng emanated, he actually felt afraid. Yusheng's eyes kept staring at him. The next moment, the demonic cultivator felt as though the silhouette before him was that of a demon god. He felt like he wanted to surrender. "Let it go," said Blood Raiment as she walked out, attempting to become a mediator. However, Yusheng did not look at her and kept advancing. His overbearing pressure enveloped the other party as he said, "In Devil Imperial Palace, ability speaks for everything. Since you question my decision, then defeat me." As Yusheng said this, he charged forward. The other party immediately sensed a peerless demonic figure appear. Yusheng seemed to become a demon god that forced the demons to submit to him. When he punched out, the space trembled violently. The surrounding cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace frantically made way for him. The demonic cultivator took out a demonic saber and slashed out. However, his slash shattered under the punch of the demon god. The domineering demonic punch landed directly on the other party. There was a loud rumble, and the demonic cultivator's internal organs seemed to be crushed as he was sent flying out. He then fell to the ground. When the surrounding cultivators saw this scene, many of them were shocked. Yusheng's ability was already considered top tier in Devil Imperial Palace. Very few people could defeat him. The speed of his growth was astonishing. The attitude of the Devil Emperor towards Yusheng already faintly hinted that he intended to hand the Devil world over to the latter. Their trip here to the Tomb of the Gods was a mission. It was most likely a trial. Many demonic cultivators had objections regarding Yusheng's attitude towards Yi Futian. He had shown partiality for the latter. However, Yi Futian had also been a guest in Devil Imperial Palace, and the Devil Emperor had met with him. Hence, they had not said anything. "Seeing that you have cultivated in Devil Imperial Palace, I will spare you this time. If you wish to question me again, you'd better be able to defeat me," warned Yusheng as he swept a glance at the heavily injured demonic cultivator. "Do not forget our goal for this trip." "Go inside," said Yengi. Yusheng did not say anything. Yengi headed over towards the temple of House Kurura Head, and the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace followed behind him. "Let's go in and take a look around," Yusheng said to Yi Futian and his group. "You can go about your own business. We will have a look around ourselves," Yi Futian told Yusheng. "The teachings of the ancestors of the Devil world are what is most important." Yusheng's expression was serious. He then nodded his head and followed the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace into the temple. "Let's go take a look," said Yi Futian. His group advanced. The towering temple of House Kurura was majestic. Divine walls were erected all around. The space inside was very large. Even though they were shattered and only a few dilapidated walls remained, their glory in their heyday could still be faintly felt. These divine walls were not forged from ordinary material. Even after such a frightening divine war back then, they were not destroyed and were left as ruins. Their hardness was apparent. "They are so tall," Fang Xian said in a low voice to the side. These divine walls were exceptionally tall. Most of them were shattered. They most likely used to be part of glorious demon castles. The terrain grew higher and higher. A terrifying aura emanated from high above up ahead. Spiritual will could not invade that space. "Look at the divine wall," someone said. Up ahead, patterns were carved on the divine wall. They appeared lifelike as though the patterns were moving. There were many Kurura figures among the carvings. It should be the will left behind by a top cultivator of House Kurura from ancient times. Lord Chen speculated, this place should be the core region of the temple. The outer areas are most likely already ruins, so we did not see them. Yi Futian looked at the divine wall. In his mind, It was as though the divine wall came alive. The Karura figures carved on the wall moved. In his mind, the divine wall unleashed dazzling divine halos. It is the will left behind by a demon monarch. It contains the divine techniques of House Karura. This place is indeed the core region and should be the holy land of cultivation, said Yi Futian as he agreed with Lord Chen's speculation. Unfortunately, it is incomplete, added Lord Chen as he nodded his head and looked at the surrounding region. Most of the divine walls were shattered. There should have been complete divine walls carved with a complete set of House Karura divine techniques. However, because so many had been destroyed, it was unclear how much of it could be comprehended. The cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace kept advancing further into the temple. Clearly, their goal was not the relics of House Karura. For them, this was secondary. The relics left behind by the ancestors of the Devil World were more important to them. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. They could already sense a very powerful demonic will up ahead. All of you can cultivate here for a while, said Yi Futian. Little Condor, June, and the others could comprehend the divine techniques on the divine wall. Back then, June had descended from Demon God Mountain. He was from Sky Demon Court, and his original body was that of a golden-winged giant prung bird. The cultivation techniques here were naturally suitable for him. Yi Futian continued forward. Demonic might enveloped the space. After entering this space, demonic will and demonic chi circled them and were extremely frightening. This power even immediately cut off auras of the great path and spiritual will. Upon entering this place, everyone sensed an astonishing demonic will. What divine arm is that? Asked Yi Futian as he looked ahead. A divine arm descended from the heavens and stabbed into the ground. It seemed like a divine ruler that pinned the ground below. Powerful law of the great path was carved into it. There was a strange shift in Yi Futian's life spirit right then. This did not happen often. However, he discovered that it was caused by the appearance of a divine item each time it occurred. This made Yi Futian grow more and more curious. How did he get this life spirit? Who gave birth to him? That is, someone said. They could only see clearly once they got inside. The divine ruler from the sky that was stabbed into the ground had pinned down a terrifying godly figure. It was the figure of a demon god. The divine ruler forged a region of absolute law power, seemingly sealing away the demon god figure. However, even so, from the demon god figure, terrifying demonic will was still emanating. After countless years, this demonic will had yet to dissipate. One could imagine how powerful and menacing it was. Before the body of the demon god, there was a body that was torn to shreds. It was gigantic, but its feathers had been torn out, and its bones were smashed. It was apparent that the battle back then was tragic. Even so, the gigantic corpse similarly emanated powerful demonic chi. The bones of the corpse seemed to be marked with divine runes of the great path. For even the corpse to contain runes meant that the body had been cultivated to its extreme limit. On both corpses, powerful wills of the great emperors emanated as though they belonged to two unyielding gods. Was this the demonic lord and the king of House Karura of the 8 legions? Yi Futian thought to himself. Had they both died here together? This divine ruler did not seem to be the item of demon monarch Karura. It most likely belonged to an outside force. Other powerful cultivators had attacked them. In this ancient battle, the demonic lord might have suppressed the king of House Karura. Yi Futian also sensed that the might of the divine ruler far exceeded what he was sensing now. He wanted to take a look at it. However, if he truly coveted this treasure, the members of Devil Imperial Palace would most likely attack him. Although Yu Sheng would help Yi Futian, the latter would not make it difficult for the former. Now that Yu Sheng had yet to possess absolute authority in Devil Imperial Palace, Yi Futian naturally knew how to behave to not cause trouble for Yu Sheng. Yi Futian looked around to see if there was other good stuff. In the surrounding region, there were many corpses. They were all intact corpses that most likely belonged to super cultivators. He saw another gigantic Karura corpse. Yi Futian walked over towards it and stood before it. His consciousness invaded it. He immediately sensed the same divine runes of the great emperor on this corpse. Could it be that this is a cultivation technique that they were born with? Or rather, is it part of their physique? Asked Yi Futian. Was this the extraordinary divine body of Karura royalty? This corpse was more complete and had not been destroyed. The demonic lord must have killed him to deal with the king of Karura. His consciousness dived into the corpse. This time, he felt the sensation he had felt back when he was comprehending the corpse of Shenjia the Great Emperor. However, what was different was that the divine body of Shenjia the Great Emperor carried a powerful attacking will, whereas this corpse didn't. Anticipation welled up in Yi Futian as he comprehended the divine runes of the Great Emperor on the corpse. The cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace also noticed his actions. However, they ignored him. Their attention was on the demonic lord and the king of Karura. Yu Sheng, Yi Futian called out to Yu Sheng after cultivating for a while. Yu Sheng turned to look at him. Yi Futian threw a few elixirs towards him. Yu Sheng revealed an incredulous look. Why was Yi Futian giving him elixirs? This imperial corpse has caught my eye. However, Devil Imperial Palace has taken this area. I will not take it for free. There are enough subdivine elixirs here for all the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace below the Tribulation Plane, said Yi Futian. The value of the imperial corpse was naturally higher. However, for the demonic cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace, these elixirs were more valuable than the imperial corpse. After all, they had no tangible use for the latter. All right, said Yu Sheng. He understood Yi Futian's intention. He immediately accepted the elixirs and threw them over to Yen Gi. He said, Demon Sage, you can distribute them. Yen Gi took out the elixirs. When he scanned the rank of the elixirs, he revealed a strange look. He looked surprised at Yi Futian and said, These are all subdivine elixirs of the highest rank. This is worth an imperial corpse. He knew that Yi Futian was not taking advantage of them. When they heard Yen Gi's words, the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace were stunned. Before this, they were somewhat disdainful towards Yi Futian's offerings. However, once Yen Gi put it that way, these elixirs were indeed priceless. Yi Futian nodded his head slightly and did not say more. He continued to comprehend the imperial corpse. After comprehending for a while just now, he decided that he wanted it and hence had taken out the elixirs. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 2681, Ancient Heaven Court? Chapter 2681, Ancient Heaven Court. Many days passed. The cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace kept comprehending the body of the demonic lord. At the same time, many demonic cultivators from the outside also came here. On the other hand, Yi Futian kept comprehending the Karura Imperial Corpse. However, just as he was about to understand it completely, he stopped and chose to let Little Condor comprehend it. His will was linked with Little Condor. Little Condor could also sense what he had comprehended. Hence, not long after Little Condor began learning, he managed to resonate with the Karura Imperial Corpse. The corpse immediately lit up with the dazzling divine light of the Great Path. Inside the Imperial Corpse, countless divine runes of the Great Emperor lit up. Little Condor's will merged with it, and he could sense the will of the Karura Great Emperor. This imperial corpse was carved with divine runes of the Great Emperor and contained the will of the Emperor. It was the remains of a great emperor, yet it did not possess its own consciousness. When Little Condor began comprehending it, he immediately merged with it. Right then, the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace also came here and looked at the gigantic Karura Imperial Corpse. Divine light flowed over it, and an extremely powerful aura emanated from it. Then, they suddenly sensed a menacing aura. The Karura Imperial Corpse seemed to move. It opened its eyes and a marvelous divine light radiated from them. This caused the hearts of the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace to leap. Had the Imperial Corpse come back to life? The hearts of the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace kept throbbing. Even the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace were also looking at the Imperial Corpse. The gigantic body slowly moved. It spread its wings and blocked out the sky as it took to the air. This scene caused the hearts of the various cultivators to beat even more intensely. Had the great emperor been revived? Just then, the massive mouth of the imperial corpse moved. It opened its mouth and said, "I never imagined that Condor-sama would see such a day." Once these words were uttered, the crowd felt as though the mood was ruined. The tension built instantly dissipated. This fellow was actually Little Condor. Had he gained control of the imperial corpse? However, many people then showed looks of admiration. An ordinary demonic beast like Little Condor could now control an imperial corpse because he followed Yi Futian. Who wouldn't be envious? "Zifeng, isn't Condor-sama majestic?" asked the Karura imperial corpse as it looked at the phoenix. Zifeng felt her heart shudder slightly. Right now, the Karura imperial corpse was naturally domineering. However, when she recalled that the corpse was possessed by that nagging fellow, a bizarre feeling welled up inside her. Bang! Hence, he can directly sense my comprehension, and it makes it more convenient for him to control the imperial corpse, Yi Futian told the crowd. The crowd naturally understood. Yi Futian was mainly concerned that the golden-winged giant Pengbird would have objections. After all, he had also been following Yi Futian. However, Yi Futian did not need to explain. Everyone had grown more powerful after following him. Even if he picked favorites, that was human nature. After all, Little Condor was originally his mount that he had absolute control over. "Let's go. We have lost a lot of time. We should head over to other places," said Yi Futian. The crowd nodded their heads. Little Condor put the imperial corpse away, and then the group of cultivators left this place. Yu Xing was not around. Yi Futian also did not want to disturb his cultivation. The members of Devil Imperial Palace also did not mind that they were leaving. Yi Futian's group walked out of the region. They discovered that many cultivators of the Devil World had arrived in the region and were seeking the relics of the demon clan from the past in this part of the world. When Emperor Shi saw this scene, he said, "This region is now controlled by Devil Imperial Palace. It will most likely become the base of the Devil World on this ancient continent. If they completely conquer this region, the Devil World will use this place as their headquarters." Responded Yi Futian as he nodded his head. "It might be possible. Before I came here, I considered whether we could find a relic to establish ourselves in. Then, we can bring the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace over to cultivate. It is a similar line of thought. The other worlds will certainly also do the same. They will occupy a space and make it their base. They will completely rule over the region without allowing other forces to enter. This small world contains the relics of a demonic lord and one of the 8 legions, House Karura. The ancestors of the Devil World were once here with House Karura. Them controlling this place is undoubtedly most appropriate." Before this, he encountered cultivators on the demigod list here. However, after Devil Imperial Palace took over the region, they left. They knew their own strength. After all, even the forces of the empty divine realm had backed down, let alone the other cultivators. The crowd nodded. Now, it had been proven that below the heavenly path were the 8 legions. The gods started the war of the heavenly path, which resulted in the end of the gods and the collapse of the heavenly path. Yi Futian thought about the divine ruler. Was it formed from the law of the heavenly path? Since one of the 8 legions, House Karura, had been found, that meant the other legions would also show up. He did not know whether they had already been found. Their group traversed the world of the relic. They did not know how the outside world was all this time they had been here. Outside, more and more cultivators were coming to the ancient continent. Cultivators from various worlds surged in. When Yi Futian and the others first arrived in the Tomb of the Gods, it was almost impossible to find traces of cultivators. Now they were everywhere. Just as Yi Futian imagined, after the Tomb of the Gods was opened, the various great emperor-level forces sought out the lands of the 8 legions first. Even in the current world, the major ruling forces were inextricably linked to the 8 legions. However, these connections were all different. Some were similar to the Devil World and House Karura being sworn enemies, while others resembled the 8 legions. For instance, the current Dark Court was similar to House Azura. House Deva, which was rumored to be the leader of the 8 legions in ancient times, was ruled by the heavenly emperor. Later on, another similar power was born, the heaven realm. However, something seemed to have happened to the heaven realm in the current age. Right now, many cultivators had gathered in a region high up in the tomb of the gods. The group of cultivators at the very front were the cultivators from the heaven realm. The mysterious youth that Futian had previously encountered was here. Behind him, there were the 4 heavenly kings of the heaven realm. Aside from the latter, there were also other cultivators with profound cultivation. They all stood in one location and looked up into the sky. Over there was a sky stairwell that led up into the heavens. On the stairwell, there were palace watchtowers as well as many towering stone pillars. However, right then, the stone pillars cracked in half and the palace watchtowers collapsed. Even then, divine light still descended from the heavens together with an aura. They had found the ancient heaven court, which was the location of the leader of the 8 legions, House Deva. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2682, Maharaga. Chapter 2682, Maharaga. The cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace traversed across the relic continent. This time, the cultivators of West Imperial Palace led by Shichiao also traveled with them. Along the way they saw many cultivators. As for the relics, there were fewer of them. Futian's group had already plundered quite a few of the relics. They also gained a few emperor-level teachings. As for how many cultivators were here, aside from the emperor-level forces, there were also superpowers like the ancient god clans. There were cultivators from every world, as well as super cultivators who had been in seclusion. With so many people here, the relics left behind since the age of the gods were naturally divided up and plundered. As their group advanced, Shichiao rushed over from another direction. "How are things?" asked Futian. Just now, Shichiao had gone to gather intelligence. There were changes to the relic continent each day. They had lost a lot of time in the relic of House Kurura. Many things must have occurred in the outside world. Shichiao reported, "News that the Devil Imperial Palace has found and occupied the relic of House Kurura has already gotten out. It is not just the Devil Imperial Palace who has managed to do so. The Emperor-level forces have managed to find the relics of the 8 legions one after another, a number that have been confirmed. The Dark Court has found the relic of House Azura, whereas the Divine Prefecture found the relic of House Naga. Rumor has it that the cultivators of the Heaven Realm have discovered the relic of House Deva. It is also about to be opened." She had come across a lot of useful information. She continued, "A huge mountain range has also appeared in the north. Many corpses with terrifying auras have been discovered there. Many cultivators are gradually heading over to that region. It is rumored that the relic of House Maharaga of the 8 legions might be located there." Shichiao looked at Futian and said, "For now, I have heard that no emperor-level force has headed over there yet. Should we head there ourselves?" Beneath the heavenly path were the 8 legions. However, even including the heavenly emperor realm, there were only 7 emperor-level forces. Even if each force occupied one relic of the 8 legions, there would still be one left over. If so, which force was most likely to occupy the last relic? It was possible for the Ziwei Segmentum, which was the leader of the original realm. Although the West Imperial Palace was an ancient god clan, it was impossible for them to want to occupy a relic of one of the 8 legions in such a chaotic situation. However, they might still have a chance to find the teachings of a great emperor. "Let's go," said Futian. The relic of House Kurura had left him in awe with the many corpses of great emperors they found there. The relic of House Maharaga, which was also one of the 8 legions, would not disappoint. Futian was aware that although the power of Ziwei Imperial Palace was constantly growing now, they still had a long way to go to be on par with the Emperor-level forces. This time, the various Emperor-level forces had sent out almost all of their cultivators. His ego had not bloated to the point that he believed that Ziwei Imperial Palace could contend with Emperor-level forces in their current condition. "All right, said Qiqiao. Then, let's head over there immediately. The group continued on their way. As they were traveling, Yi Futian asked Qiqiao, Goddess Qiao, what do you know about the 8 legions? The West Imperial Palace was an ancient god clan. He wondered whether they knew some ancient secrets. After all, the West Imperial Palace still had the will of a great emperor. They are legends from the age of the gods, said Qiqiao. Legends tell that beneath the heavenly path were the 8 legions. They maintain the order of the world. Beneath the heavenly path, the cultivation world was extremely prosperous. Large numbers of super cultivators emerged. Hence, that age was known as the Age of the Gods. She continued, the 8 legions were led by House Deva, which resided in the central heaven court. The 8 legions each had their own duties. House Naga ruled over the demonic clans. House Azura ruled over the underworld and controlled life, death, and reincarnation. Legends say that they dared to contend with House Deva. The other legions also had their own responsibilities. They represented the heavenly path in the world. Rumor has it that the heavenly emperor realm is connected to House Deva from ancient times. So, the cultivators of the heaven realm discovering the location of House Deva is also due to this connection? Yi Futian mumbled. Back then, how did the heavenly emperor realm fall into decline? What secrets lie behind all this? Do the forces of the heaven realm now have the ability to control the relic of the strongest House Deva? If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. I am not so familiar with the current ability of the heaven realm. They have kept an extremely low profile. Normally, it is difficult to even catch a glimpse of them. They rarely appear in other worlds and cultivate on their own, said Qiqiao. Yi Futian also felt that the heaven realm was extremely mysterious. The heir of the heavenly emperor realm was extremely talented, and his ability was also very frightening. When they had fought, the other party used Donghuang Diyuan's ability, Heaven Punishing Divine Sword. Qiqiao said in a low voice, however, I have heard some elders mention some secrets from back then. The ruler of the heaven realm had peerless talent and ability. Even the Devil Emperor, the Evil Emperor, and the other great emperors from back then avoided getting into a fight with him. However, unbeknownst why, he suddenly disappeared without a trace. Most likely, only the emperor-level forces know why. It seems that the various major emperor-level forces are secretive about these issues. Her beautiful gaze revealed a pondering look. She seemed to also be curious about what happened back then. I have heard that Donghuang the Great was also involved in this, commented Qiqiao, though she sounded uncertain. Yi Futian revealed a strange look. He recalled the ability of the heir of the heaven realm. What Qiqiao said might be true. Donghuang the Great was truly a legendary figure. There seemed to be stories of him everywhere. Be it from Master of Four Corner Village or in the world of Buddhism, his traces could be found everywhere. Yi Futian was actually very curious about what sort of person Donghuang the Great was. From the looks of it, the heaven realm has such a deep background and has cultivated away from the world. They have not come in contact with the outside world and kept themselves hidden. After so many years, the power of the heaven court of the heaven realm might not be weaker than the other emperor-level forces, said Yi Futian. It is possible, said Qiqiao. The last heavenly emperor was also a domineering figure. Yi Futian nodded his head. The ability of the current, low-profile heaven realm would most likely be revealed in the near future. Yi Futian said, this time, the relics of the gods have appeared, and the relics of the 8 legions have been found one after another. If the heaven realm has truly discovered and occupied the relic of House Deva, the other emperor-level forces will not allow them to do so easily. A huge battle will certainly erupt. House Deva was the leader of the 8 legions. Its relic would undoubtedly be a main target of contention for the emperor-level forces. Even if the emperor-level forces had already found a relic of the 8 legions, who wouldn't want more emperor-level teachings? Of course, it was better to have more. That's right. Even though the relics of the 8 legions have surfaced one after another, there are bound to be battles in the future. Qiqiao acknowledged Yi Futian's words. In reality, it was difficult for her idea of Ziwei Imperial Palace occupying a relic to come to fruition. It depended on their luck and fate. This continent of the gods would not just be here for a day or two. It was now permanently part of the original realm. They kept traveling north. However, it still took them a long time to reach the mountain range. Before they arrived, Futian's group slowed down. They glanced ahead far into the distance. There seemed to be divine mountains bordering the sky in the heavens above. Countless mountains towered into the sky. It appeared to be a mountain range from ancient times. Although they were still far away, Futian's group already sensed a mysterious aura. There was also a formless pressure as well as an old will. In the surrounding space, many people traversed the skies and came to this place. There were also many cultivators below who surged over to this ancient mountain range one after another. In reality, before them, many cultivators had already ended up perishing in the mountain range and now lay there forever. "We have arrived," said Qiqiao. Although it was her first time here, she naturally sensed that the place that they were looking for was up ahead. "Maharaga," mumbled Futian. The 8 legions maintained the world order beneath the heavenly path during ancient times. People of the present were far too old and seemed alien. Of course, they also garnered respect. Rumor has it that among the 8 legions, House Maharaga was proficient in battle. This house had no taboos and acted recklessly. However, their combat ability was indeed powerful. "Some people called them demon gods while others called them spirits," said Qiqiao. As they spoke, they approached the divine mountain range. There were only countless cultivators here. There were no relics in sight. They must have been plundered clean by the cultivators these past few days. They probably would only find fateful encounters by going deep into the divine mountains. Futian stopped when they reached the outskirts of the divine mountains. He looked at the ancient mountains ahead. The mysterious pressure was growing more intense. It seemed to be everywhere. "Be careful," Futian warned in a low voice. "I sense that these endless mountains seem to possess wills. If this is the base of House Maharaga, it is possible these are the wills left behind by the ancestors of House Maharaga that have merged with the mountains." The crowd nodded with serious expressions. This was where the relic of House Maharaga, one of the 8 legions, was located. It might be the only relic of the 8 legions they could contend for. The other locations were already beyond their grasp. "Come, let's go," said Futian. Their group entered into the divine mountain region, heading deep inside. The group slowed down and were much more cautious now than before. Within these divine mountains, corpses could be seen from time to time. They must have been cultivators who had come seeking fateful encounters. "It is so unpleasant. My heart rate has increased," said Lord Qin to the side. The others also nodded their heads. Everyone felt an unpleasant aura. Where was this mysterious pressure coming from? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Many Renowangs from Ziwei Imperial Palace naturally understood this too. If it weren't for the presence of Futian, the other cultivators like Little Condor, Wuchen, and Yaya would never stand a chance to receive the teachings of the great emperors. "The few of you, clear the way," Futian commanded as he looked at the few people behind him. They nodded. Sword Saint, Wuchen, and a few others moved forward. They had not tried out their abilities since they received the teachings of the great emperors. Now, these gigantic pythons served as the best practice targets for them. Sword Saint took the lead. He acquired a demonic imperial arm before this. With the demonic blade in his hand, he moved swiftly as mighty demonic will surrounded his body. Even though he could only activate part of the power hidden in the imperial arm, he still emanated an outstanding temperament with the support of the overbearing demonic will. A massive demonic python pounced towards Sword Saint with its mouth wide open. It had no sentience at all. Sword Saint slashed down. The demonic light traversed across space and sliced the python's body in half. Terrifying will of destruction tore the body of the beast apart. Wuchen, Yaya, and the swordmaster of Lihin moved simultaneously. They charged in 3 different directions. The sword matrix they had inherited was formidable and formed when three came together as one. However, they were still very powerful even when they acted separately. It was because they had each inherited teachings from an independent great emperor. Yi Wuqian's sword was sharp and overbearing. Yaya's sword tore everything into shreds. The sword of the swordmaster of Lihan directly sliced through the beast's will. With the three of them clearing the way in front, all the demonic pythons were crushed. "Let's go!" Yi Futian and the others followed behind them and advanced. With Sword Saint and the others clearing the path, the group progressed smoothly. They moved deeper into the mountains. Some other cultivators recognized Yi Futian and followed behind his group. They could ensure their safety by walking behind them. Yi Futian did not pay them any heed either. These people would not pose a threat to him. If they were strong enough to threaten him, they wouldn't have followed behind his group. The troop pushed on into the mountains and killed several demonic pythons along the way. They continued their journey until they reached a unique region in the mountains. There were several extraordinarily powerful wills existing in the surrounding mountains. An example was a sword will left behind by a great emperor who sliced a mountain in half. Besides that, there was an enormous palm seared onto the ground, which resulted in a big hole. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. There were also countless broken divine arms littered on the ground. The arms all contained threatening auras. Moreover, Yi Futian discovered that the surrounding region had encountered large-scale destruction. Nothing was spared. This caused a massive open plain to appear in front of them. From the looks of it, the surrounding mountains had been flattened during battle. Surprisingly, many extraordinary cultivators paused their journey and stayed here. "What is that?" someone asked. The group looked ahead and saw a mountain. However, a terrifying aura emanated from it. They felt goosebumps all over their bodies just by glancing at the mountain. Shi Qiao's facial expression turned extremely ugly as her heart raced. The mountain was formed from piled-up corpses. The scene was startling and unpalatable. Was this place once hell? The corpses of the cultivators were piled up and became a mountain. An intense perilous aura derived from the mountain of corpses and permeated the space. Surprisingly, there were many cultivators meditating in the region. There seemed to be wills of the great emperors lingering here. Yi Futian expanded his divine consciousness and enveloped the vast space. He discovered quite a few relics left behind by the great emperors around the area. Calling them relics was a stretch. The great emperors had merely perished and remained here. House Maharaga was indeed bloodthirsty and ruthless. "They killed so many people," Shi Qiao commented. The original West Imperial Palace Lord advised, "You can't jump to that conclusion." The cultivators from the outside world invaded their area and intended to eradicate them. The 8 legions only exist in the annals of history now. Therefore, it's unwise for us to comment about the War of the Heavenly Path. However, Qiao, if someone wants to annihilate West Imperial Palace, what would you do? When Shi Qiao put herself in that situation, she could understand the intention behind their massacre. It was just that this horrifying scene greatly impacted her. The corpses piled up to form a mountain. Such a scene had actually appeared so vividly before her eyes. The original palace lord continued, "The combat ability of House Maharaga was indeed formidable. There are so many corpses here. Furthermore, it seems that quite a few great emperors have perished here." "Let's go have a look," Yi Futian suggested. He wondered whether there was anything worth comprehending among the relics left behind by these great emperors. This area had certainly been surrounded by many troops in the past. House Maharaga seemed to have slain quite a number of great emperors. "All of you, have a look around. I will check out the front," Yi Futian said. He moved to the front alone. However, Hua Jiyu and Hua Qingqing followed him. The rest of them moved in different directions. They were still in the same region where they could take care of each other, so there should not be any danger. Step by step, Yi Futian approached the mountain of corpses. A menacing perilous aura immediately rushed towards him. Anyone who approached the mountain would be corrupted by the perilous aura. Moreover, this mountain of corpses prevented the cultivators from advancing. The core region of House Maharaga might lie behind the mountain. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.